Good morning. Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Austin, why are you giggling? Because the topics today are going to be a doozy. Jesus, it's never going to be anything other than spicy to extra spicy. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm going to have some fun today. We have fun every day, but today might be a little extra fun. Don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to the channel if it's your first time here today. Nice to see you. I love all the new friends and faces that we're making. Real Hunter Human, he's one of our new friends from Argentina. And who else do we have today that I saw that first time I had seen in the Rumble chat? South Cott says good morning. Good morning to you. Nice to see you. Man, I tell you, all these feminists this morning are trying to bring me down. They keep saying,
do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
That's right.
From now on, it's going to be America first, okay? America first.
Every time we try and have some fun, the feminists in this world want to get us down. They call the cops.
FBI, open up!
Charlie Kirk is in big trouble this morning. He's in real hot water for suggesting that birth control might adversely affect female brains. Now, when I first heard that he had said that, I thought to myself, okay, why the controversy? I've heard that for years, but it came from women. When women said it, nobody freaked out. But when Charlie Kirk suggested it, all of a sudden, we've got a problem. We're going to talk about that this morning, and guess who we're going to talk about it with at 8 o'clock this morning? You know who it's going to be? Camelia Peterson. Where's my evil laugh button? Now, you guys, if you watch the show on Tuesday, you know, Camelia is my regular guest. She joins us Tuesdays and Thursdays, and she talks about all these kinds of topics, which is absolutely perfect for her to discuss because we talk about these things, Camelia and I, in our private lives when we're just hanging out as friends, we're rafting down the river. I've always been the type to poke Camelia about these women's issues, right? But now that the whole world, the whole feminist world, whether you're a left-wing feminist or a right-wing feminist, they've all got their spears out and they're poking Charlie Kirk. How dare you? How dare you? And now Pearl Davis, just Pearly Things, and Hannah Cox are in this huge catfight online over dating younger women, women's preferences for dating taller men versus men's preferences for dating younger women. And Hannah Cox is calling people who date younger women or want to be dating, you know, the attraction to younger women as like essentially pedophilia, which made me feel kind of weird when I saw that because I was like, Stephanie is 9 years my younger. And I'm pretty sure that doesn't mean that I want to date underage women. It just means that I like beautiful young women who are fertile, who can provide me with a child, like my child who will soon be born. Yes, shaming men for their preferences, totally allowed. Shaming women for their preferences is absolutely not allowed. It's haram. We're going to hear from Hannah Cox actually on this show tomorrow. Yeah. She's going to talk to us about women and their ick factor, and we'll ask her about her debate with Pearly Things. I usually find myself on the side of Hannah Cox on most issues, but I have to say on these things, I'm definitely siding with Pearly Davis. What about you?
How dare you?
What do you mean, how dare you? Oh, come on. That's the thing. We're going to have some very spicy conversations this morning. And of course, we've got to talk about the big news, which is that that really is happening out there. The Wall Street Journal's new polls shows bad news for Biden.
Put you all back in chains.
What? No, sorry, wrong Joe Biden clip.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Yes, there it is. The new Wall Street Journal poll of 7 swing states has plenty of bad news for President Biden. God, I'm so happy. Richard, hold me. He's trailing in 6 of the 7 most important battlegrounds of the 2024 election. Oh my God, the Democrats are freaking out. They're freaking, man. They're freaking out. More broadly, it has one piece of potentially devastating news for the party that Biden leads. The pillars that hold up the Democratic coalition are showing fractures. Slow down, AP. I'm getting excited. It's, you know what it is? It's this delicious Thomas's Painkiller coffee I'm drinking from the AP for Liberty shop this morning. It's making me feel so good. At this moment, under this president, the mix of Black, Latino, and young voters who have been crucial to electing Democratic candidates are withholding support from Biden or shifting toward Donald Trump, a trend particularly dramatic among men. Men. Boys, I think we're going to have another hot boys summer this summer. I'm telling you what, it's starting to feel like men are starting to take control again in our lives. It feels so damn good to be a man again. Remember in the 80s when it was like awesome to be a man and we were surfing and we were in Los Angeles and we dated chicks with big boobs and we drank Bud Light before and it wasn't gay and we could just ride skateboards and be awesome. And then the 90s happened and I think that a bunch of guys, because like goth chicks were hot, I think that like that's when like the simping culture really began. And I love what Scott Adams had to say yesterday about the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is the party of women and men and the men who are scared of them. If they didn't do everything that women said, if they didn't bow down to their authority, then they would never get laid.
How dare you?
I know it's a little spicy this morning, maybe a little PG-13. These topics of the gender wars and of the culture wars do sometimes venture into PG-13 to rated R territory.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm going to come.
He's back, baby. Back. Oh, listen. Oh. It's good to be the king. The Wake Up America show, of course, is brought to you by viewers and listeners just like you. We are going to have Maxim Lott on the show this morning at 7:30, by the way, to break down the Wall Street Journal poll results. It's just, we're going to have a lot of fun today. And one of the most fun things that I love to do is to give you guys the extra special flavor, the bonus content. Today's is going to be, I think Robbie Thurman especially is really going to love today's bonus content. I just have a feeling. But in order to find out why, you're going to have to unlock it. How do we unlock the bonus content, Austin? How do we see the little mini documentary that you've produced for us special today? Well, you do that by making a Rumble Rant donation, by making a YouTube super chat, or by making a purchase at ap4libertyshop.com, which is what I definitely recommend that you do, because we have a beautiful new collection of glasses that are stained glass depictions of the Founding Fathers. Stephanie made them special for you. If you buy any of the four, so if you buy a full set, you get $10 off this week only. So if you would like to help unlock the bonus content today, head over to ap4libertyshop.com, buy 4 wine or whiskey or shot glasses featuring our Founding Fathers in a stained glass depiction. Use the code HistoricSpirits. You get $10 off of your purchase, and then you get to unlock the bonus content right now. Sounds good to me. Real Hunter Human from Argentina says, if Biden wins, I'm going to live on the moon. No. We stay and we fight for our countries. We fight for liberty. What are you complaining about, Real Hunter Human? Aren't you living in Argentina? You have the most libertarian president in all of world history. God bless Javier Milei. The Wake Up America show, again, brought to you by viewers and listeners like you. Just an FYI, if you would like to have your voice heard on the show today, send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Thank you, Robbie, for the tip. How can he turn that down? Yes, today's little mini documentary. The theme of the mini documentaries this week, by the way, the bonus content, is guns that won. So the guns that helped to shape and build the American Republic. The last 3 days, we've had the Winchester 1873 lever-action rifle. We've had the Colt Navy revolver, and we had the Kentucky rifle. So if you would like to see what today's gun that won is, then make a donation just like Robbie, or go to ap4libertyshop.com, make a purchase. If we make $50 by the end of the show, you get that unlocked. All right, so let's get to the news. Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA. Hot water this morning for these comments.
A lot of them are on birth control too,
And birth control like really screws up female brains, by the way. Every single one of you need to make sure that your loved ones are not on birth control. It increases depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation. Birth control is the #1 most prescribed medication for young ladies under the age of 25. They will give young ladies birth control for pimples, for acne, to control their moods, their period. It is awful, it's terrible, and it creates very angry and bitter young ladies and young women. That bitterness then manifests into a political party that is the bitter party. I mean, the Democrat Party is all about bring us your bitterness and, we'll give you free stuff. It's like we'll trade you, bitterness for stuff, essentially. It's like
damn. Okay. He's not wrong, but you're way out of line for saying something like that. Okay. Yes. Okay, Charlie, that is a lot to unpack there. Here's the funny thing is that the idea that birth control alters women's brain chemistry, I think, is indisputable. Now, here's the thing. I'm not an expert. I am not an expert. Let me tell you this. I'm the Joe Rogan here of the show, which means that I'm just asking questions, okay? I don't know the science behind birth control in women's brains, but I am at least decent enough to do a little bit of homework and research on people who are experts to see what they come up with. And Camelia and I are going to have a conversation about this morning at 8 a.m. Central Time. I'm sure she'll be able to talk to us a little bit more about it. Of course, I have no idea if she's on birth control, if she's ever been on birth control. That'll be up to her to divulge if she wants. Obviously, it's a tricky topic. But I've heard things like, obviously not the partisan stuff that Charlie Kirk is talking about here, but I've heard similar claims about the negative impacts of birth control on the human brain, the female brain, for years now. And, that I never took the time really to look into it until this controversy exploded. But I did manage to find some clips of some women discussing the science behind this, and including a TEDx talk. But more and more in recent years, I've heard women are getting off of birth control because of the negative impact that it's had on their brains. Listen to this. Don't take it from my mouth.
Have you ever felt tired, easily frustrated, and prone to feeling low? Maybe it's just your birth control.
Okay.
Hey everyone, Julia here for D News. The pill is over 60 years old. It was a revolution. It allowed women to take full control over their reproductive health. And since then, it's been studied a whole bunch, and we've talked about it before on the show. Check some links for those episodes down below. Some women suffer from a form of PMS so severe it affects work, family, life, etc., called premenstrual dysphoric disorder, or PMDD. For some of these women, a prescription of birth control makes symptoms easier to manage. On the other hand, birth control gets a bad rap. Many women report no adverse side effects. Some women say the pill makes them more moody and depressed. So who is right? Well, a recent study published in the Journal of Human Brain Mapping found that oral birth control has a strange way of affecting a woman's brain.
Okay, yes. So it reduces a woman's cortical thickness. And I found another video that explains a little bit more what the impacts of those cortical thickness are. Let's continue here.
Neuroscientists from UCLA compared some women who take oral contraceptives, or OC, and some naturally cycling women who don't. They found that women who take OC had lower cortical thickness in the lateral orbitofrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex. The researchers say that these parts of the brain are related to processing rewards and other things like incoming stimuli. But more research is needed to see if these changes are related to a change in behavior.
Okay, so that is probably the key factor, is that Charlie might have gone and taken it a little too far by saying, but this video came out 8 years ago. Now here's another video that came out 4 months ago with a newer study. Take a listen to this.
Experts say birth control has changed life for many women since it was approved for use in Canada in the 1960s.
Oral contraceptives have had such positive impact on women's life, women's condition, their integration into the workforce, allowing them control over their body.
But
Okay, pause. So interesting to note there that the whole point of birth control was to get women into the workforce. At least this is the positives that this woman is saying.
Understanding how the pill might change our brain has been the recent focus for Marie-France Marin, specifically looking at the medial prefrontal cortex.
That's a region that is important to inhibit fear responses. So we see it a bit like as the brakes on your emotion.
Researchers found that part of the brain was thinner in the people who took oral birth control.
what studies have shown before is that the thicker that part of the brain is, the better you are at regulating your emotions. So in our case, women using oral contraceptive had thinner ventromedial prefrontal cortex, suggesting that this may be why they have more difficulty regulating fear.
It's essentially
Whoa, that is a very big statement there. So this is the woman who authored the study from Montreal, and she's talking about the prefrontal cortex here, the brains of women who have been on oral birth control. Now, what it's showing is that the area of the brain that helps someone to regulate emotions is thinner in the area where in this region of the brain, it's thinner. This is the part of the brain that allows you to control your emotions. Now listen, Charlie is extrapolating from this and making some political assumptions from this, but I don't know that it's necessarily a bridge too far to it may be a bridge too far to completely assume that what Charlie Kirk is saying is correct. And let's hear what Charlie had to say again. This is what's blowing up this morning, the controversy.
A lot of them are on birth control too, and birth control like really screws up female brains, by the way. Every single one of you need to make sure that your loved ones are not on birth control. It increases depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation. Birth control is the #1 most prescribed medication for young ladies under the age of 25. They will give young ladies birth control for pimples, for acne, to control their moods, their period. It is awful. It's terrible, and it creates very angry and bitter young ladies and young women. That bitterness then manifests into a political party that is the bitter party. I mean, the Democrat Party is all about bring us your bitterness, and we'll give you free stuff. It's like we'll trade you. Bitterness for stuff, essentially.
Okay, now one may not necessarily follow the other, right? That's Charlie's opinion of how what the consequences are of that. But the inability to regulate emotions and whether or not the Republicans versus Democrats take more birth control or not, you'd have to do another study there. My guess is that probably Democrats tend to be more on birth control. I mean, when you heard this woman talking about, how birth control is good because it helps women to get into the workforce, then you have to wonder if there isn't some ulterior motive there. Again, let's go back to the study author and let her finish her thoughts.
I've shown before is that the thicker that part of the brain is, the better you are at regulating your emotions. So in our case, women use.
So the birth control is thinning out the region of the brain that helps you to regulate your emotions. Now, I think it's safe to assume, it's safe to extrapolate, maybe not go as far as what Charlie said, but it's safe to extrapolate that if you're unable to control your emotions, that's a bad thing. It's probably a good thing that you're able to control your emotions more. And I'm seeing a lot of very emotional responses to what Charlie Kirk is saying.
Using oral contraceptive had thinner ventromedial prefrontal cortex, suggesting that this may be why they have more difficulty regulating fear.
It's essentially
that they have more difficulty regulating fear. So then if Charlie Kirk were to be more correct, it's not necessarily make you more bitter, but more fearful. And certainly the Democratic Party is the party of being fearful. Not to say that Republicans don't fearmonger us or terrorize us. Oh, TikTok's taking over. The Chinese are going to buy up all our farmland and sell us soybeans and turn us all into soy boys, right? Both parties use fear, but we should recognize that if we are medicating ourselves in this way and it's making us more fearful, cause and effect. What I find fascinating is that you'll have people who will say, on one hand, oh, I don't, weed doesn't affect me, or, I can do a little blow on the weekends, or I can do all these I can take a little Xanax, I can take all these other mind-altering drugs, and it doesn't affect me, it's no problem, it's totally fine. Or you'll have the conservative women who will say, on one hand, oh, that you can't do weed, that messes with your brain. You can't do illegal drugs, that messes with your brain. LSD and psilocybin and mushrooms. No, don't be a stoner. It's going to mess with your brain chemistry. But birth control is not going to mess with your brain chemistry. I think that we're seeing, and this isn't conclusive, right? This is just a recent study, but we're seeing that there is a cause and effect to taking these hormones. The idea that it wouldn't affect your brain, I think, is probably naive.
Where the good reasoning takes place.
Psychology professor Nafisa Ismail says a person's age can also affect these functional and structural changes in the brain.
These changes seem to be more drastic when the contraceptives and the synthetic hormones are taken early on in development, like during puberty and adolescence. But
so the younger you give women birth control, the more drastic the impact is on the brain and the part of the brain that regulates fear.
need to definitely understand their impact better.
Researchers say they also looked at people who used to take the pill and have since stopped. Data suggests the changes in the brain don't seem to last forever.
The thinner effect was only observed in those currently using the pill, suggesting that the effect is reversible and that there are probably not any long-lasting effects of oral contraceptives.
So that it could be reversible if you get off of it, but you got to get off of it. And I mean, there's a lot of people who are on it, and I don't think they're going to want to get off it.
Experts say more research is needed, but in the end, they want people to be able to make informed choices about their medications.
Yeah, we do need to be making more informed choices about this. Now, this video I pulled up from the same, why some women are quitting hormonal birth control, and it made me laugh because, and I'll try and play this a couple of times, but if you can look at the screen, zoom in on this lady right here with the horn rim glasses. Look at this lady right here. Do you notice something in the armpit area?
In a post-Roe world, contraceptives like birth control are taking center stage.
I'm officially off my hormonal birth control.
But online, a chorus of voices are taking to platforms like TikTok to talk about why the pill might not be for them, even if they don't want to get pregnant.
A few quick updates for you.
25-year-old Erica Hong says she first got on the pill at 16 as a way to not only prevent pregnancy, but also manage what's called polycystic ovarian syndrome, presenting in symptoms like acne and irregular menstruation.
And it really, truly helped me with a lot of my symptoms, but then I experienced new side effects.
Side effects like mood swings, weight gain, and even hair loss.
In a nutshell, that repeated over and over again for about 5 different pills over a span of almost 10 years.
Her experience with birth control is unfortunately not uncommon, according to doctors. What are some of the common side effects that you see with people who take birth control?
So when we look at side effects from starting a particular type of contraception, that can be anywhere from nausea, headaches, or even some weight gain. There are some people that note some hair changes, whether that's hair loss or sparseness in hair.
I think I'm getting hair loss.
For Ali Vaccaro, hormonal changes like hair loss came after she got off the pill.
Scared me at first. I did not even know that was a side effect.
So many women go to their doctors and often don't find answers.
Dr. Viva Ram is the author of Hormone Intelligence. She says while access to contraceptives is incredibly important, research around side effects is limited.
We have essentially women taking very similar birth control right now to what their mothers or grandmothers took. Women in the US typically go through about 3 different forms of birth control before finally just kind of settling on one that is the most tolerable.
And there have only been a few studies around birth control for men. Concerns and complaints about side effects have stopped many of the studies. Meanwhile, a panel of FDA advisors just voted unanimously to recommend an over-the-counter birth control pill. The final decision is expected this summer.
We still have to look at the day and age that we're in and the access and allowing women to make the choices for themselves. There should be a comprehensive view on if someone wants to come off birth control. You really need an active plan.
I wanted to give you a little update.
After documenting her experience with
An active plan just to come off of the birth control. This is all just, I mean, complete shocker to me. And obviously I'm ignorant because I'm a male and I've never taken birth control here, but I try to keep an open mind about these sorts of things. And I've always been the type of person who said, you know, people should be allowed to take drugs that they want to take, provided that they're adults and, you know, they understand what they're taking. But I've always been the type of person to say, you know, there are terrible side effects to some of these things. And I just never knew what some of the potential side effects of being on hormonal birth control might be, but it sounds like they might be a lot more severe than we first thought.
birth control online, Erica says she received an outpouring of responses from others who could relate.
It makes me happy, and in a way it makes me sad that so many women relate to my story.
Oh, man, we're going to have to talk about that one a little bit later. Camelia Peterson's going to join us live at 8 o'clock Central to talk about this topic and much more, the catfight between Hannah Cox and Pearly Davis. But before we do, we're going to speak to Maxim Lott to talk about the Wall Street Journal swing state poll. A survey finds a fraying Democratic coalition as Trump gains among young and minority voters. You don't want to miss it. Maxim Lott joining us live in 5. Don't go away. Keep making those Rumble Rant donations to unlock the bonus content You don't want to miss that today. Guns That Won. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Expanse of time, a year might seem like a mere moment, but oh, what a year it's been. In September 2022, Austin and Stephanie Peterson embarked on a journey to wake up America. They began humbly, with just 20 souls tuning in, learning, listening, and though challenges arose, like the looming shadow of YouTube demonetization, their spirit never waned. And now, thanks to you, thousands rise with the sun to join them, to listen, to engage, to be a part of a community. So here's to you, and to Wake Up America, for memories shared, for friends made, for the journey ahead, and for never, ever forgetting to rise and freedom. Happy anniversary.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Is the outdoor of your home about as exciting as a library? Then spice it up and unbore your space with our custom metal signs. Crafted with love and a bit of libertarian magic, you can customize your own metal sign at ap4libertyshop.com. So head to ap4libertyshop.com, customize your own metal sign today.
Welcome to a world of vocal discovery at Peterson Voice Studio. I'm Justin Peterson, here to guide your musical journey. Envision a place where your voice reaches new heights, where every note tells a story. We embrace all singers, from the enthusiastic shower vocalists to aspiring stars, ensuring each voice finds its unique rhythm and tone. Are you ready to elevate your voice? Visit PetersonVoiceStudio.com and sign up for remote lessons tailored just for you. Let's begin this melodious journey together.
Good morning, everybody. Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. We're glad and thankful to have you here. If you haven't already, don't forget, click that like button to help us spread the ideas around. We'll get to make more friends as well. All the new names and faces that we're seeing over in the chats, it's because people like yourself helped us to get the word out. We love economic freedom and personal liberty, and we want to share them with you and all the people that you care about in your life. If you haven't already, maybe click the follow button as well, so that way you can find us easy here tomorrow morning on the Rumble channel where we're streaming live, as well as on x.com. Nice to see everybody over there. Repost this show and share it with your friends so that more people can hear the good news that we're going to be talking about right now. The Wall Street Journal poll, dismal news for Joe Biden. A survey found that a fraying Democratic coalition is possibly going to cost Biden re-election. Trump is gaining among young and minority voters. Joining us now is a man who is a little young, but definitely not a minority. He's very white. Max Lott joining us live. He's the founder of electionbettingodds.com and his new website, www.maximumtruth.org, is live now. You got to check that out. Good morning, Maxim. We lost your microphone there, Maxim.
Hey, Austin, great to be here with you. Yeah, do we millennials still count as young is a question, I guess.
I don't think if you asked a Zoomer or a Generation Alpha that they would do that. It would be, they're done with us at this age. Culture is no longer for us. But maybe the future belongs to us, because when I'm reading this Wall Street Journal poll, it really gave me a lot of hope. What were some of the key takeaways from this?
Yeah, so basically young voters and Black and Hispanic men are all shifting towards Republicans and Trump in particular. And, a lot of polls have found that over the last few months. And the first poll I saw like that, I didn't believe it. I think most people didn't. It's like, well, they're probably the small sample size, but all the polls are indicating this really. And so you got to take it seriously. And so when you add that up, Trump ends up ahead in every swing state in this Wall Street Journal poll, except Wisconsin. And so it's very bullish for him.
Yeah, I think that it's sad that the election is really only going to come down to 7 states. I was reading a piece by Karl Rove the other day where he was talking about the 2000 election between Al Gore and George W. Bush, and it used to be 14 states that would be the ones that are the deciding factor. But at this point now, 7 swing states are where the presidential election are going to be decided, and the real problem that Biden faces is that the sort of historic coalitions that he was able to count on, Blacks, Latinos, young voters, are starting to sway towards Trump. Is there any methodology in this, any understanding, or what's the mentality for why these historic coalitions are starting to abandon the Democrats? What are your thoughts, Maxim?
Yeah, there are 2 reasons that I've seen that seem plausible. I mean, the first is when you have the Gen Z voters, and also just a lot of voters who they're not reading the Wall Street Journal or New York Times every day. They're just seeing an occasional TikTok pass by. And they voted for Joe Biden with some enthusiasm. Like, this guy's going to, fix things and return us to normalcy from this crazy Trump guy. And it didn't happen. The inflation's been terrible since then. There are all these new wars. And so they're just very disillusioned. And I think a lot of them are just staying home. Others are looking, well, maybe Trump wasn't so bad. And I think for young people, they have less experience to draw on. So someone who's 65 says, yeah, I was there for Nixon. This is still better than the 70s. But they don't have that perspective. And so they're able to swing much more.
It's funny that this morning and yesterday online, I've been seeing a lot of talk from mutual friends of ours, people like Hannah Cox and others, who are out there saying that people like Charlie Kirk and Pearlie Davis are scaring away all the young women from wanting to be on the right or to vote Trump or Republican or Libertarian or what have you. But I find that fascinating because we're all supposed to cater to them, right? We gotta be nice to the women because we don't want them to abandon us. We need their votes. Okay. But the fascinating thing about this Wall Street Journal poll is that the Democrats are freaking out because they're losing men. And I just am wondering to myself, Maxim, how does the Democratic Party go from, a feminist matriarchy, which is ostensibly what it is, the Hillary Clintons, the Elizabeth Warrens, how do they suddenly go? It's kind of like the Bud Light thing. How do they go from Dylan Mulvaney and then turn it around bald eagles and riding bulls and cowboys aren't going to save the Democratic Party? The Democratic Party is in trouble with men. How do they possibly rebrand for something like that? They can't do what Bud Light did and turn on a dime.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And, it makes sense when you look at all this. The Democratic Party has become so much about victimhood and you're a victim and we're going to get you, what you're owed. And if you're a self-respecting man, it's hard to be excited about that message. And I think you're seeing that. And African-American and Hispanic cultures are particularly masculine. I think that's not too controversial to say. And so I think, I think that's part of the movement.
The clue was that as soon as Latinx hit the scene, it was absolutely not.
Right.
But this poll, Maxim, also shows at the same time Biden's hold among women is also weakening to about 50% support, down 4 percentage points between 2020 and the February polls. Men are showing the greater shift away, but he's losing women too.
Yeah. And I think that just gets to the general disillusionment with how his administration's gone. One thing I'll add is when we see young people moving to the right here a little bit, other countries have seen the same thing and are actually ahead of us in that. So Argentina, it's amazing. If you look at the age breakdown, people under 30 voted for Milei, the radical libertarian, like 2/3 to 1/3. It's amazing. It's the old people who voted 2/3 to 1/3 for the socialists there. So that turns on its head what we've always thought in the US. So young people are always liberal. And hopefully we're seeing a shift, the start of a little shift in that direction.
Yes.
France, too, the young people are more right-wing.
France?
Yeah. Again, it's this populist kind of right-wing like Le Pen and stuff, but it's the young people more than the old people. And another interesting thing in the Wall Street Journal article, it's old people who support Biden more than Trump now, like actual senior citizens above 65. I think it's because they're the only ones still watching ABC, CBS, NBC.
Your boss's old network. Yes, it's not what it used to be. It's not what it used to be back in the days of Give Me a Break on 2020. This is a fascinating conversation, Maxim. I've been learning a lot about Argentina and what led to the rise of Javier Milei. And there's this video, a supercut of all of these videos that young people were sharing amongst each other running up to the election. And it was all of them schooling their teachers their teachers are all these socialists, of course, completely run and governed by the state. So like all the young people were getting based and red pilled and schooling their teachers on economics, and it just went viral like wildfire. There's something I think, in youth culture that's going to naturally be rebellious. So like when you say like the established old people tend to be left liberals or progressives or feminists or what have you, the youth are going to want to rebel. They're going to want to be something. They're going to want to rebel against the regime. And the regime that we have now is progressive left, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember back even in 2016, some on the right were saying, we're the real rebels now because we're the ones getting censored. And I could see the grain of truth to that, but the young people didn't seem to be buying it. But it seems like there is finally some actual movement there. Another interesting thing is really no one predicted this well, except maybe someone like Trump, who just his political instincts moved him this way. But, I didn't see any pundits saying, blacks and Hispanics are going to go to Republicans now that Democrats are all woken about victimhood. But that seems to be what's going on.
Maxim, for those who might just be tuning in, I'm speaking to Maxim Lott. He is the founder of electionbettingodds.com, as well as his new website where you can read about his following of the artificial intelligence revolution at trackingai.org. His Substack is maximumtruth.org, but you want to put a www in front of that so you can get to that website in case you have some issues. Make sure that you guys follow Maxim Lott over on x.com as well, just Maxim Lott over on X. We're talking to him a little bit about Donald Trump's potential revenge, the battleground states, and the coalitions that might lead to a re-election of President Donald Trump. We're sort of breaking this down right now with my buddy Maxim. And I'd like to talk to you now, Maxim, about the question of the third-party independent spoilers. Boy, it's fascinating to see where we've come in the third-party sphere from 2016 until today, man. And I've had a front row seat, right? You went from the sort of likable, people were sort of like liking libertarians in 2016 a little bit. Gary Johnson got that 3%, kind of a historic vote total. To now, it's like RFK Jr. is kind of like the pick, and the libertarians are kind of like squashed and nothing. The third-party question this year is probably more fascinating than it's ever been, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really interesting looking at these polls where third parties combined are getting like 15%. And the other amazing thing is they don't seem to be pulling, if you combine them all, from any one candidate. It's almost even. It's like when it's head to head in the polls, Trump is up by like 3 points, and you subtract 15 from all of them, Trump is still up by 3 points. So that's kind of amazing. I have not seen that before. And it's just this, obviously the Green Party or Cornel West is pulling from people who are upset about Palestine, Israel from the left. And then you have RFK pulling maybe Trump supporters who think he's not anti-vaccine enough. But he's also pulling some Democrats who are just fed up with Biden. So it's amazing how evenly it breaks out.
Yeah, does RFK kind of take evenly from Biden and Trump, but with maybe Trump getting a little bit of an edge? Is that what I'm to assume from what you're saying?
Well, it's I think it's on the fence there. All the third-party candidates together pull pretty evenly. Sometimes I think RFK pulls more from Trump right now, but we'll see how that changes. He just picked this new running mate who's a far lefty, but who has billions of dollars to help him out. So
yeah.
But one fun fact: I was in Pennsylvania. The first election sign of this year I saw was Kennedy 24. I haven't seen any Trump or Biden yet, but I saw a Kennedy.
So. Oh, interesting. Good to know, Kennedy. So, Maxim, this is a little bit of a tangent, and then we'll come back to the main topic for a moment. I spent the first 10 years of my political career as a hardcore activist for the Libertarian Party, and the interest in libertarian politics, seemed to reach a crest through the Tea Party years, and then crash after 2016. And now we see a situation where RFK is taking up sucking up all the oxygen in the room when it comes to an interest in third party. What happened? I mean, what changed from 2016 until today in your mind, when we were kind of like the it girl at Fox Business? Stossel's show, Freedom Watch, Tea Party Summit, Ron Paul hanging out with Sarah Palin, all this stuff going on, right? What changed, Maxim?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think to some extent the most salient issues like immigration, and then Trump brought up trade, and that was really a big issue in the Rust Belt. I think these are issues that libertarians struggle with in terms of like populism, like the majority is against libertarians. Mm-hmm. And so the issues that people are focused on just moved away from libertarian friendly subjects, like maybe the budget, where we're more obviously correct on, to regulations, for example, to these culture war issues where libertarians have a harder time. That's one thought. You would know best. I'm curious, actually, your thoughts on the current libertarian nomination. I see this guy Mapstead in the polls. Who's he?
I mean, I know it's sad. They struggled with the fact, and we're tangenting on a tangent. We will get back to the main point in a moment, but the situation is that the Mises caucus led the takeover of the LP with these promises that they were going to bring, money and support, and that the takeover of the LP away from the Nick Sarwark kind of left libertarian people was going to produce fruit. And that was led by, comedian Dave Smith, who was ostensibly going to be the presidential candidate frontrunner for them, who would have done a good job preaching libertarian ideals, I think. And whether or not the party was in step with where the American people are right now probably wouldn't have mattered as much, because I think that the LP probably would have been a little more unified with a candidate that they all felt more comfortable with, and that, was the sort of the Zion of the Mises caucus. But when Dave stepped back, that coalition sort of fractured, because it was really very much centered around that singular personality. And so without that sort of, obvious leadership, the party started to eat itself alive and has been cannibalizing itself, leading to a bunch of sort of weaker second, third, fourth string candidates who have come up now that no one's heard of, and doesn't present that same kind of unifying force within the LP that a Dave Smith candidate might have had. Now, there was always that concern that, someone might come in like a Bill Weld type, right, and take over the party. But I think that RFK Jr. is not going to seek the Libertarian Party's nomination like that. They seem to show no interest in that to a large extent. Whether that's good or bad for the party, I think is immaterial. But at the end of the day, I think that the LP has sort of, shot themselves in the foot in terms of their relevance. And there's some things that are working against them. Obviously, they have no control over, right, ballot access and malign laws that prevent them from being able to run I have nothing against them. I wish them well, and obviously I share an ideology with many of those people. But I think at the end of the day, if you're playing electoral politics, you've got to play the electoral politics game, and you've got to be able to do it. It's unfortunate, but I think that this is just my prediction, and it's not to say anything malign about them, but I just think that they're irrelevant this year.
Yeah, that's what the polling shows.
Yeah. It's a shame, because I wish that libertarians were more accepted, and that I wish that we had a Javier Milei here in the United States, but we do not. And all my Javier Milei supporting friends in Argentina are all like, please, Austin, vote for Donald Trump. We love Donald Trump. Latinos for Donald Trump.
They're not his Latinas con Biden Harris.
No.
That's their name
No,
of their
no,
new
no.
Latino outreach group.
No, for sure. So back onto the main topic, though, the question of Joe Biden and the problems that he's facing in some of these battleground states. You mentioned Wisconsin, right? Wisconsin is the one state that Biden isn't trailing. What's up with the cheeseheads? What's the story there?
Yeah, well, the Wall Street Journal attributed it. People are just more optimistic about the economy in Wisconsin. But in reality, Pennsylvania, if you look at the polling average, both Wisconsin and Pennsylvania are pretty much neck and neck. One thing I should add, I run electionbettingodds.com, and those show that it's a coin toss right now, even though Trump is clearly ahead in the polls, both the average and this poll. And I think they're factoring in all the money advantage Biden has. They're going to pour ads into the swing states, pour targeted voter efforts. And so I think it is going to be a really close election, even though Trump is ahead in the polls right now. But yeah, Wisconsin could be close. One other interesting thing, Nebraska. I know you're not too far. You're a couple hours from Omaha, I think. Omaha controls one electoral vote, given the odd way Nebraska does its votes. And I stare at these electoral maps for hours. And if you do that, you'll see Trump currently has to win one of the Rust Belt states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. And if he just wins all the southern swing states, he loses by one electoral vote, unless he can somehow win Omaha, Nebraska, which he lost by 6 points last time. So that's the one extra 8th swing state you can add, Omaha.
Damn, man, this is a hell of an election to cover, Maxim, and I know that you're going to be glued to it as much as I am. So I hope you'll be a more regular guest as we head into the November election. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go? Anything we've missed?
I think that's most of it. Yeah, I'll be following, obviously, the betting odds. They also have the vice presidential odds. They've got, the South Dakota governor and Tim Scott are each have about 10 to 20%. And then J.D. Vance is a dark horse there. I think he could be a good pick for Trump. So that'll be interesting to follow as well.
Certainly is. Strange times we live in, Maxim, but I'm glad people like you are out there keeping an eye on it for us. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll definitely check out Election Betting Odds, your website, as well as MaximumTruth.org. But we got to put the www in front of the MaximumTruth.org in order to get to your Substack, because otherwise it doesn't work. So thank you, Maxim.
Thank you very much, Austin. Great talking to you.
Have a good one. Appreciate you.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
If you're enjoying the Wake Up America show this morning, don't forget to hit that like button. We appreciate all the support that we can get. We are, I believe about $12 towards our $50 goal today to unlock the bonus content that I know Robbie Thurman is going to love. The bonus content this week is the theme of the guns that won. And if you would like to see what today's special firearm was that helped to build the American Republic, get those Rumble rants in before the end of the show. And if we raise at least $50 in either Rumble rants or in purchases from apforlibertyshop.com, you're going to be able to see that content. So if you'd like to unlock that content, and I know you would, head over to apforlibertyshop.com and make yourself a qualifying purchase. And if you do, that will help to unlock the bonus content. Wouldn't you like to see that? Okay, great. So good conversation with Maxim. Very awesome. Excited to talk to Camelia about the topic that is driving everybody on the internet bonkers this morning. We're all fighting and at each other's throats over a statement that Charlie Kirk made like this.
A lot of them are on birth control too, and birth control really screws up female brains, by the way. Every single one of you need to make sure that your loved ones are not on birth control. It increases depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, birth control is the #1 most prescribed medication for young ladies under the age of 25. They will give young ladies birth control for pimples, for acne, to control their moods, their period. It is awful, it's terrible, and it creates very angry and bitter young ladies and young women. That bitterness then manifests into a political party that is the bitter party. I mean, the Democrat Party is all about bring us your bitterness and, we'll give you free stuff. It's like, we'll trade you, bitterness.
Charlie. Ay, that's spicy. Your boy Avatar. Poor Charlie Kirk. Poor Charlie Kirk. The surprising link between women's brains and the birth control pill. A TEDx talk by Sarah Hill.
So the idea that our sex hormones influence our brain shouldn't be problematic, right?
It shouldn't be problematic, but Charlie Kirk mentioning it seems that it's problematic. But since Sarah Hill is speaking about it and she's a woman, and because identity politics is all the rage right now, let's let Sarah explain
Women's hormones change and they influence women's behavior and how women think, feel, and what they do. Men's hormones change, and when they change, they also influence what men think, feel, and do.
No.
Right? And we have to start having conversations about these things because not doing so is bad for women's health. Right? Because we need to break these rules that have prevented us from having thoughtful conversations about the birth control pill and who it makes women. Right? Because even though women take the birth control pill for a small number of targeted effects, right, it has an impact on women's bodies from head to toe, including the brain. Right? And the way that the birth control pill works is it changes women's levels of sex hormones. And even though we tend to think of our sex hormones as something that happens to us, right, like something that causes puberty and hair growth in places that we don't really want to talk about in polite company, our sex hormones are actually a key part of the signaling machinery that our brain uses to create the experience of being the person that we are. And so when we change women's sex hormones, we're actually changing the version of their brain that they are creating. Right? And there's a growing body of research in psychology and neuroscience that shows this to be true. Right? For example, just thinking about sexual functioning, right, which is something that we all think about a lot. Right? We know from research that women who are on the birth control pill exhibit decreased sexual desire and decreased sexual functioning relative to their naturally cycling counterparts. And the reason for this has everything to do with the hormonal profile that's created by the birth control pill. The hormones that facilitate the sexual response in women and facilitate sexual desire are relatively high levels of estrogen and testosterone and lower levels of progesterone. Right? Progesterone actually inhibits women's sexual desire. And the sex hormone profile on the birth control pill is essentially sexual antivenom. Right? It's high levels of progesterone, a sexual inhibitor, right, and relatively low levels of estrogen and testosterone. And indeed, there's a lot of research indicating that women tend to have diminished libido on the birth control pill. But it's not just sexual desire, right, and women's desire for sex and their sexual responsiveness that changes in response to the birth control pill. Right? It can also influence who women are attracted to.
This is what Jade824 was just saying over the Rumble chat. I see you there, Jade. What's up? Thank you, Quest, for the donation. We've raised, I think, $14 towards the $50 goal to unlock the bonus content today.
Right, and this is also something that's influenced by the levels of sex hormones that are created by the birth control pill. Right, so we know now from decades of research that women's own levels of estrogen predict the amount of testosterone that they prefer in their partners. In other words, the sex hormone estrogen increases women's attunement to cues that have historically been linked to testosterone levels in men. This graph that you're looking at here is showing how women's own levels of estrogen predict testosterone preference. And what you can see from this is that estrogen loves testosterone. Right? So women, when they have relatively high levels of estrogen, are really cued into facial cues that are associated with masculinity, and this changes their preferences over the course of the cycle.
So women who are on birth control pills are more attracted to soy boys. Women, when they're not on birth control pills, are more attracted to APs for Liberty. Is everybody ready for us to talk about birth control with Camellia? Is everybody ready to talk about the catfight between Pearl Davis and Hannah Cox with Camellia? It's going to be a doozy. You do not want to go away. Grab some popcorn or some eggs and bacon. It's morning. Some coffee. We'll be right back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, you know, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my...
A lot of them are on birth control too, and birth control really screws up female brains, by the way. Every single one of you need to make sure that your loved ones are not on birth control. It increases depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation. Birth control is the #1 most prescribed medication for young ladies under the age of 25. They will give young ladies birth control for pimples, for acne, to control their moods, their period. It is awful, it's terrible, and it creates very angry and bitter young ladies and young women. That bitterness then manifests into a political party that is the bitter party. I mean, the Democrat Party is all about bring us your bitterness and, we'll give you free stuff. It's like we'll trade you, bitterness for stuff, essentially. That's like the Democrat.
Bring us your bitterness and we'll give you free stuff. Good morning. That does sound like the Democratic Party to me. They're all on birth control, even the men. I'm Austin Peterson. Glad to have you here. Do us a favor. Click that like button, subscribe to the channel. Come back and join us every Monday through Friday. The show streams live from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time and it's a great way to start your day. So click that like, follow, repost, wherever you're at. Share us with your friends. We'd appreciate that very much. Okay, well, birth control. Does it have an impact on women's brains? Does it turn them into bitter, angry Democrats? Joining us now to discuss, the lovely Camelia Peterson. Good morning, CJ.
I'm ready for round two.
What? Now, you got some compliments on your appearance the other day here on the show. Some people felt like you really held your own, and I thought the same thing. I mean, maybe a body slam here or there.
Well, I would never purport to be able to debate the inestimable on Austin Peterson.
So many have tried, so very few have succeeded.
Yes.
Camelia, the funny thing about this birth control discussion that Charlie Kirk has started up this morning as a wildfire, obviously he sort of extrapolates maybe some outcomes from being on birth control that might be a bridge too far. I don't know. But what I've heard Charlie Kirk say about it changing women's brain chemistry and their behaviors and their hormones and their feelings, I've been hearing this from women in recent years.
Sure.
More women are choosing to get off of birth control because of how it makes them feel and what it does to their emotions. I guess on the first part of this question, tell us what you think about what Charlie Kirk said, and then talk to us about your feelings about more generally about women choosing to get off birth control and what you think about how it regulates your moods.
I mean, so I think that sometimes the problem is the messenger, right? Because as you said, people have been talking about this issue for a long time, and many women, not just women, but many women have been talking about this issue. So Charlie Kirk is, shall we say, not the best messenger for these kind of things. He's been saying some other problematic kind of things lately, and as well. But it is, when he talks about that this is what makes people Democrats, I mean, come on. It is, and I think it's different for every individual, but can we make such broad overarching statements? Probably not. Is it a legitimate issue? Yes. Is this the right way to approach it if we want to bring young women back into conservatism and persuade them of those ideas and make them feel wanted so we don't keep losing them to the left? Maybe we should try something
You're debating
different.
tactics, right? But a red herring. You're debating tactics here. You're not debating principle. Like let's suppose for a moment, briefly, that Charlie Kirk is right. What if women going on birth control at 16 years old thins out the prefrontal cortex of their brains, thereby making them more fearful? And because they are more fearful, they descend into statism and ask government to be their daddies that left when they were little girls. And now they're projecting their daddy issues onto the rest of society because they have an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex due to the fact that they were started on birth control when they were 16 years old, because left feminist progressives want us not to reproduce, and they want women in the workforce, and these are their stated claims, including of the birth control video that I played a little bit earlier. It sounds like a bridge too far in some sense, but I don't know that it's really that ridiculous of an assumption to assume that someone who is more fearful is more likely to end up wanting to vote for authoritarianism or statism because it seems more comfortable, it seems more, take care of you, rather than the individualist philosophy of empowerment that libertarians and some conservatives would sell to women. That's not, I mean, you see this in the reaction that conservative women have. Like they circle the wagons the same way that the liberal feminists do in some sense. So there's a phenomenon, there's a psychological phenomenon going on here. Maybe we don't fully understand it, but there might just be a causal link here. Are you completely dismissing it?
No, not at all, actually. In fact, I would say I probably don't disagree with pretty much everything that you just said, because I think if you walk the logic out, it's not hard to see that conclusion, and that it can absolutely increase the tendency for women to do that. And that is the thing, like when we are talking about hormonal birth control, It is. I know that girls are given, they use it for everything. Charlie Kirk, I think, mentioned this. They give it to them when they're young for acne issues. They give it to them for painful menstrual cycles, all kinds of things, and that's because hormones affect women's bodies so drastically. And women or men can say, "Oh, women turn into bees, when they're older, whatever." But I mean, there are a lot of things that are very often out of a woman's control when it comes to her hormones that absolutely affect her behaviorally. And you will hear women talk about this like they don't understand these changes that are happening to them, which is why you see so much research and science now going into the balance of hormones when women start reaching, perimenopause and menopause and things like that, because, you will hear women talk about how they feel like a completely different person. And I think the same can be said, for when women are younger and parents think they're doing the right thing, putting their girls on these medications. And not every woman is going to react in the same way. I've been on hormonal birth control. I'm off and on, different periods of my life, but not for like a long time. And my parents never put me on it when I was young. But I would not say I experienced any of the things that, he talked about, or that you hear people talk about as far as adverse side effects. Maybe I couldn't see that. I don't know. Maybe I need somebody else in my life to tell me that. But I do think, individual differences in medications affect people differently. So not all women are going to respond in that way, but there is a growing body of evidence that does indicate that it has a very negative impact. And so I think the scientific community needs to seriously look at whether or not, we need to continue on down this path of encouraging, women to take that.
I mean, certainly it's a good question, because if we're giving it to teenage girls, this recent study that I was playing out a little bit earlier shows that the younger that we give them birth control, the more dramatic the effect is on thinning out the prefrontal cortex. And that's what regulates a woman's emotions, right? They're like, women are probably naturally a little bit more emotional than men. Controversial statement, I know. But then to dramatize that impact by thinning out their prefrontal cortex with this, it sounds to me like a dangerous combination. Now, the psychological impacts of that, like, that's where things get a little bit more murky, right? Charlie Kirk is saying it turns them into liberal Democrats. Maybe, maybe not, right? I'm willing to suggest that perhaps that might be a bridge too far. However, I think it's also ridiculous to suggest that there aren't some psychological impacts on the physiological changes that occur if you are on drugs. But what's fascinating too is that I see a lot of these conservative women attacking Charlie Kirk for suggesting these things, and I think what you said earlier, that it's not about the message, it's about the messenger, is probably true, which is a damn shame. But unfortunately, that sort of plays into the hands of what people like Pearlie Davis and other people are saying when she kind of jokes that women shouldn't vote because if they can't control their emotional responses to things, they're basing their voting preferences on how they get their feelings hurt, then that is a big problem. So, for example, and I'll let you respond to this once I set this up properly, Camelia. Here's what Hannah Cox had to say about what Charlie Kirk's comments were on birth control. She says, this is kind of mirroring what you said, Camelia. She says, every time Charlie Kirk opens his mouth, the country takes another step towards socialism. Women and minorities are fleeing the right due to doofuses like him, and somehow these morons haven't done the math to realize they can't lose 50% of the country if we want to remain capitalists. Okay. So women and minorities are not fleeing the right. As a matter of fact, I was just talking to Maxim a few minutes earlier about how minorities, minority males, are fleeing the left. But what's interesting about what you said earlier, you didn't say it as a threat, but I feel like with Hannah, it's almost implied as a threat. So how I interpret what Hannah is saying is, we women are going to bring freedom in this country to a complete stop, and we're going to end this country if mean men don't stop hurting our feelings, right? So it does appear to play in a little bit to the Pearlie Davis things of like, y'all are too emotional to vote, be judges in courtrooms, be the heads of the military, potentially be presidents of the United States, if you cannot regulate the simple emotional response that you have to someone saying something that disagrees with you. Can you see where I'm going with this?
know that I would consider, Hannah's or some of the other women's responses to Charlie Kirk as emotional, because let's be real, Charlie Kirk says a lot of really stupid stuff, not just about women.
Sure. But I mean, like, you're gonna bring freedom to a halt in this country. You're gonna go with the Democrats and vote left, and you're gonna flee because somebody hurt your feelings. I'm sorry, ladies, but it just seems to me a little bit as if we're supposed to cater to you and pander to you. Don't hurt the women's feelings, right? Don't hurt their feelings, or they're going to vote, or we're going to bring this country to a screeching halt. We're going to end capitalism in this country and end freedom and put you all back in chains to the state if you hurt our feelings. Strikes me as a bit emotional.
I mean, maybe, but does any woman, in a reaction to someone like Charlie Kirk have this conscious, thought process, following that? I don't think that they consciously think about it that way. I think it's a cumulative effect of, this messaging that comes from the right, and especially when it comes from people like Charlie Kirk. And it's just like that gradual drip, 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 drip turn off of, and that makes them turn away and not be as receptive to conservative ideals and principles, and it makes them more receptive to people who are not saying those things, and who are maybe affirming some of their womanhood and things like that. Not necessarily that the left is doing that lately, by the way.
Sure, no. But I mean, like, how would you like to be pandered to, Camellia? I mean, you said the other day on the show that you would prefer equality to chivalry. Okay, so now you're being treated like men. Okay, what does that mean? What does it mean to be treated like a man, Camellia? It means that people are going to say hurtful things to your feelings, and nobody gives a shit. Okay, nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. Like, people say mean, hurtful, awful, insane, terrible, hateful shit to me all day, every day online. And you know what?
Yeah.
Guess what? That's just I take it, because that's what being a man is. But it just feels as if you want the privileges of manhood without the associated negative responsibilities of manhood, which includes getting your feelings hurt and voting Republican anyway.
It feels that way. Right?
Yeah.
But
that hurts my feelings. I'm not going to go vote Democrat because some bitch hurt my feelings.
No. Although I will tell you that this is not something that is specific. I mean, just women don't have the monopoly per se. Maybe they have a larger portion of the market on responding to things that way, but I don't know that they have the monopoly on it, because there are plenty of men on the right, including a large part of like Pearl's audience, who respond to things very emotionally. They respond to it in a different way than women, but it's still like very emotionally rooted, and very, anything that's outraged that, tickles their biases already and makes them feel good about it. These are the facts don't care about your feelings crowd. But the irony is that they are affected by their feelings all the time. They just don't call it that, but they are absolutely affected by their feelings. It's just not the soft, sensitive, touchy-feely emotions that they are reacting with.
And I love it whenever, the shaming that women engage in whenever a man disagrees with them. Like, they hurl the insults like, oh, you're an incel, right? And this is how women keep men in line, right? Is they try and shame us for our wants and our desires, or our needs, or our natural instincts, right? But we have to coddle to you. We have to all bow down to you, the ladies, because we don't want to hurt your feelings. Right, or else you might vote Democrat. Right, the implied threat, the knives to our throats. But then also, if we do something and disagree with you, say something that you don't like, then we engage in the shaming tactics. Right, you can't get laid, you can't get women. I love it when somebody calls me an incel. Right, and it's like, it's very clearly not true, with a baby on the way. But it's so, for example, the next topic I wanted to move on to, and I'm going to pull this up on the screen for our listeners so that they can see what I'm talking about here. So Pearly Davis is in kind of a catfight, right? Her and Hannah are warring online. And I usually agree with Hannah on I would say most things, but there are some times when I feel like Hannah is kind of like, she is that kind of like right-wing feminist that is sort of like the shield maiden for feminism in a sense. So Pearl says this. Well, this is about shaming men's preferences. She says, women try to frame men liking younger of age women as pedophilia, right? And here's what Hannah said. I've got this up on the screen. Hannah is saying, because they were saying like, oh, women have preferences for men that are taller, And Hannah is saying, there's nothing predatory or underdeveloped about wanting a man to be taller than you, Hannah says. She says it's just a societal conditioning. And because women want to feel smaller than their partner. Okay, so she's making her preferences for taller men and bigger men. She's normalizing. It's okay for her to have her preferences. But she says this, Hannah says, men who like/prefer younger women, no matter what their own age. Okay, so that's all of us. That's me and Stephanie, right? We do so because we are attracted to little girls and or want someone dumb that we can control. Hannah says this one actually isn't hard. You should want a partner you can grow old with. If the aging process turns you off, you're not mentally progressing as you should be. There's a lot to unpack there, but I'll let you start, Camelia. How would you respond to that?
So I would first respond by saying, like, for context of Pearl's tweet here, Pearl had to go way back to January to find something to hit out at Hannah with. And shall we say she subtweeted her, but she didn't even tag her in it. I mean, come on, Pearl, don't be a coward. But the thing is, I think this is clearly in response to a segment on Hannah's show that she just came out with that talked about an interview that Pearl did with Ross Jeffries.
Okay, so they're butthurt. It's a fight.
Right. So anyway,
address the issue.
The part about what Hannah said, and this is something where, Hannah and I are not always in agreement on some of these issues.
Okay.
But, when you talk about, I think what Hannah's getting at has been kind of this constant drumbeat message. And again, it's kind of how it's given that kind of tells women that men don't want any woman unless she is like virginal, 18-year-old.
You don't have to be 18, but I mean,
Well, I mean, that is kind of like that's what's put out there in the generality. And is that necessarily true?
Should men be ashamed for that preference? Should we be ashamed?
Yeah, they can have whatever preferences they want.
And we should not feel one iota of shame about it, right?
No, but I think here's the thing, there's a double standard that goes on with men sometimes too, because then they want to have their cake and eat it too,
Yes.
Oh,
Don't we all?
Okay, we cannot go there. Anyway, you don't do that. So they want them young, but then on the other hand, on the flip side, they're also criticizing them for, all of these young women nowadays and how they're so terrible and they're so feminist and, the I can fix her thing.
Is that not true?
Well, so I mean, like,
what's wrong with that?
So that's the question. I mean, that it is true. Both things are true, but can you have both things? So it's a trade-off, right? If you want them young, you're going to have to accept them as in their crazy phase or being feminist or whatever, and you have to gamble.
Crazy phase. Women are crazy from birth until natural death. Okay, there is no such thing as a phase. Yeah, as you ought to be. All right. Let me pause for just a moment because it looks like we got featured on Rumble. Nice to see all y'all joining us live, and they're like, "Who the hell are they? And what are they arguing about?" I'm Austin Peterson. This is my friend Camelia Peterson. We are not related. We are arguing or /debating /goofing around, having fun.
Welcome to the Rumble.
Yeah, welcome to the Rumble. We're ready to rumble. And we're talking about Pearly Davis. Earlier, we were talking about birth control and Charlie Kirk's comments. We might get back to that. But Hannah Cox is arguing with Pearly Davis about men's preferences and women's preferences. I mean, do you agree with me that Hannah seems to be normalizing her own preferences, no matter how shallow they may be, while demonizing men's preferences? And when I say demonizing, these are her words. She says that being attracted to younger women or preferring your age, she says, no matter what their own age is, do so because they are attracted to little girls and want someone dumb that they can control. I'm sorry, that is a malicious lie and slander against men. Against what is it? Isn't that like 95% of men who are like dating to or attracted to women that are younger than them? I mean, do we have to be born on the same day in the same hour? Like in Hannah's world, I mean, I'm assuming, she just got engaged. We're going to talk to her earlier. I'm assuming her husband or soon-to-be husband is going to be a little older than her. Does that make him a pedophile? I mean, that's outrageous, isn't it?
I think it is definitely an incredibly broad generalization that is untrue. But this is not entirely different from some of the statements that you've made here this morning about, women in general, like women are crazy their whole lives, or like there's a ton of, we do these generalizations all the time, and I think that's
right. But I'm not. She's accusing us of being horrible. Like she's accusing us of being criminals. Okay, when I say women are crazy their whole lives, we all laugh and goof off about that, and it's like ha ha ha. Right? Everybody knows it's a joke. She's not joking. She's not kidding. She says men who like or prefer younger women are attracted to little girls, or we want someone dumb that we can control. That is a malicious lie.
I think that's a bridge too far for sure. And I will let Hannah speak to is like how much of that is hyperbole or not. Yeah. But I do think that to me, this feels like kind of a reactionary statement. And I think that's a lot of what we see when we talk about the issue of how conservative women online are responding to a lot of what is coming out that is kind of just like, if sometimes, honestly, as a woman, and even as somebody who understands, a lot of what's going on both sides here, it does, in this very online context, it does feel like women are just constantly getting dragged and these generalizations being made. And like you and I talk
You're
about
getting
this,
treated like men. You're being treated. Women are getting constantly. What I hear when you say women are getting dragged, what I hear is women are now that we're equal and we demanded equality, we're now getting it good and hard. Is that what? Is that what it is? Are your
H.L. Mencken was prescient about many, many things.
Yes.
But
are
yes,
your feelings getting hurt on a daily basis, ladies?
and I think, and on the flip side, we shouldn't be doing this to men either, right? Like not all
Nobody
men are,
cares.
chauvinist pigs.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares. At some level, a little bit of bullying probably does us a little good, doesn't it, Camellia?
Sure. I mean, it makes you
Especially
develop
if you're an
skin.
asshole. Like, it's like the people who are like stuck out, right? Then, for good or for ill, always like, the hammers are out, right? To nail you back down. And that definitely clamps down on individuality. But some people who stick out are assholes and they need to be brought low. And when women go out and they're assholes, or we call them bitches, right? When they go out and they act like that, then society, and sometimes that includes men, go out there and start to drag them hard. I mean, Pearl, for example, she gets dragged. Right? She gets dragged for making dumb statements, right? The Ross Jeffries interview you were telling me about and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of society's way of sort of policing our own and all that kind of stuff. But the reason why I think Pearl gets so much hate is not necessarily because she's wrong about certain things, which I think she is. She's wrong. She's going to make some mistakes. But it's because she does not buy into the cult of the sisterhood. She actually likes men. And I get the sense that most women really don't like most men. I mean, would you say that you like most men, Camellia? I mean, you're kind of an anomaly. You might say yes, but I mean, if we're generalizing here, don't you think most women mostly don't like most men?
Oh, no. I mean, I hear people say that. I don't know that I see it. But then, I mean, you're right. I mean, maybe I'm the exception on that. And I am drawn to other women who are also the exception. But one of the things, when you talk about, Pearl and if she's wrong or right on things like that, the thing is that you can be young and wrong, and you can make adjustments in your thinking. And I believe that you should do that. But for her, and when you watch this interview with her, with Ross Jeffries, like it's literally something where if she gets called on the carpet and presented with actual factual scientific evidence, she's all of a sudden backpedaling. And this is, by the way, this has been her repeatedly in other interviews. And people talk about this is when she's confronted with this, with other evidence, she can't hold her own. And that's part of the problem. Why is she such a poor representation for, women talking about men's issues?
All of our representatives, it seems, are really not the best. The biggest ones, Charlie Kirk, Pearlie Davis,
right?
Candace Owens, right? So it's the cream doesn't rise to the top in the media society, unfortunately. If this were a more just world, Camellia, you'd have Pearlie Davis's following. But at the end of the day, I think that Pearl does a service to society by really showing how slanted things are against men in Western women's culture. So, for example, you might have seen the other day I posted this on my X account where I said I was did you see why I said I was happy that I was having a little girl?
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I remember like my feelings when I started thinking about her life, and I realized I was like, the nice thing about having a little girl is that I know that if something happens to me, if I'm in a car wreck, or if Stephanie divorces me and takes everything and leaves with the kids, like as bad as that might be for me or my life, I know that no matter what happens, that all of society is going to be there for my daughter. That I don't have to worry. If I was going to have a little boy, I had to think, I'm going to have a little boy. I have to teach them how to be hard. I have to teach them how to be tough. I have to teach them how to be resilient and to stand alone and to know that at the end of the day, when your cards are down, when everything's against you, no one is coming to save you. If the Titanic is going down, you better find yourself something to float on, because your wives, your daughters, and all of your grandmas or whoever, they're all getting on the lifeboats, and your ass is going to stay on the boat with the rest of them while Nearer My God to Thee plays. All right. Enjoy it as the Titanic is going down. So, I felt that viscerally, right, with the coming of my daughter, that there will be all of society aimed towards her. I don't think women today really kind of recognize that. You're all playing the victims to a large extent, but I mean, and you could see it when mean man hurt my feelings, I'm going to vote Democrat. It's like, shut up. Okay. Shut up. Do you want to be equal, or do you want to go down with us on the Titanic? Or would you like to get on the nice lifeboat, ladies? You told me you wanted to be equal, but Camellia, if you were on the lifeboat, you'd be curling that beautiful hair up into pigtails. You'd have the reddest lipstick on. You'd be like, come on, Felicity. Come on, Anna Rosa. Let's get on the lifeboat. Am I wrong?
So as a mother of daughters, what this illustrates, and this is actually something I've been thinking about this week, because having a daughter who is in her teenage years, and we're dealing more with the issues with boys and things like that. I think what this illustrates is the need for good fathers and the need for people to be raising healthy boys, because don't you want good men for your daughter when she gets to that age? Because it's both ways. You're going to raise a daughter who is cognizant of all of these things and raise her to be a good woman. Same thing with my daughters. And here I am thinking, like, is there going to be anybody out there that is on their level, right? Because
Shakira the other day. Shakira was making controversy because she said that she didn't like the Barbie movie. Did you happen to see this?
Right. I saw that. Yeah.
Do you know why?
Well,
Do you know why she didn't like it?
Her sons said it felt like that it emasculated them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just emasculating.
Yeah.
And
all of Western
absolutely.
society, all of Western culture is aimed at lifting up women and lionizing you and girl boss this, right? You can be whatever you want. You can be everything. And men are nothing. Men are shit. Men are plastic tools for you to use and to abuse. And more women I see are calling it out. I appreciate it. That's why I like Pearly Things, is because she calls that shit out. But real quick on the last subject I was going to ask you, Camille, because remember on Tuesday, or maybe it was before, I asked you if you would prefer equality or if you would prefer chivalry. You said equality. So just to be sure, we're on the Titanic. It's going down. You're standing right there on board with me, right?
I mean, you have no idea, but yes.
Bullshit.
I'm probably not going to be the type of person. So here's the thing, very quickly.
Wait, I need some time to laugh at that. I need some time to laugh. Oh, yes. They say there's no atheists in foxholes and no feminists in house fires or on the Titanic. But Camellia, she'd stand there. She'd stand there with us. You think that most women would do that? Would stand on the Titanic while it goes down with us?
Most, I mean, as a generality, probably not most. No. But this goes back to when you're talking about the need to be raising, kids and who's going to be there for your daughter in the future. I think this goes back to kind of one of my main problems with her. In fact, as I was watching this interview, bits and pieces of this interview she did with Ross Jeffries, I was thinking that, okay, Austin, actually, I'm ready to acquiesce a little bit of this here, in that this is the benefit of Pearl Davis, a little bit kind of like the upside to Trump, like getting people in with the bombasticness. But, this is the benefit, is if
How do you react to that statement?
I mean, it certainly seems that way a lot of times, right? Because women are setting the tone and the conversation for the party, and I can't stand pandering personally, but James Carville the other day is talking about this and how women or men are fleeing the Democratic Party. And so I think this is an issue, but I do think that it is, again, as I mentioned this the other day, like we're in like the polarization thing where the Democratic Party is, at least the progressive wing of it, it's all about your feelings and it's all about empathy, and it's toxic empathy, it's toxic sympathy, toxic compassion, if you will, and it leads to policies that actually end up doing us more harm than good. On the flip side of that, we do have the other extreme on the right, and this is one of the things that that Hannah, I think, talked about in the video I was telling you about, is that this kind of, it seems like a very online issue that we're talking about, divorce, and should we ban no-fault divorce and this and that, and like, repeal the 19th, like everybody's just kind of talking about, it's very online, it's a joke, whatever. But you do have legislators in some states who are actually introducing legislation to ban no-fault divorce. Like that's stupid. And so
how do you feel about the statement, there are no conservative women in divorce courts?
I don't know. I don't know that it's universally true. I mean, I'm not sure.
Nothing is universally true other than death and taxes, perhaps. But I mean, when you go to the divorce court, typically they go for it all. They can talk all day long about their life with, saved in the blood of the Lamb of Jesus Christ, and go to church on Sundays and raise their kids according to conservative traditional values. But when they go to the divorce courts, they want more than half. They want the house. They want full custody. Listen, if conservative women in this country, or a large number of women, and I think there probably are, we would see different statistics in the divorce courts at the end of the day, right? We would see it's the same principle, Camelia, as the ladies on the Titanic. Equality, yes, they all would say equality if they got asked the same question that you did. But at the end of the day, you're not going down on the Titanic with us, right? You're not going to go down. You want chivalry when it's convenient, and you want equality when it's convenient. And it just seems like most of you, all you ladies, not all y'all, not universally, but you want to have the privileges of manhood, but not the responsibilities. Am I wrong?
You're not entirely wrong. No. And I think that's what, the feminist movement did for us. And by the way, the feminist movement, as it began, like so many things, is not a bad thing. Women are not chattel. They shouldn't be treated like property or dirt or anything else. Like we're not animals just for breeding. So, or, your maids to clean your house all the time. Do we do those things? Yes, but we're not property. And I think that, when the feminist movement started, I think that's a good thing. But like so many things, it gets taken to extremes, and you end up with an unhealthy balance, and women thinking they can have their cake and eat it too. And, for men, there are those areas as well. And, for men, if they want them young and they want them, with a level head and, to be good, docile, obedient housewives, I mean, good luck with that. You've just decreased your pool, your selection, by a whole lot.
You were saying earlier this point about, that we shouldn't be acting like Charlie Kirk. We shouldn't be saying mean things to women because they might abandon the conservative coalition. This is what Hannah is saying. We're scaring women off. But what's interesting is that I'm kind of actually seeing the opposite, in a sense, where we were talking to Maxim Lott earlier about the Wall Street Journal poll that shows that the historic coalitions of the Democratic Party are starting to fracture, and that the major move politically is men leaving the Democratic Party and going to the Republican Party. Now, what's fascinating about that to me is it shows a couple of things, that Scott Adams is probably right. The Democrats are the party of women and men who are afraid of women. But implicit in what you said earlier in kind of echoing Hannah is, if you're mean to women, they're going to vote Democrat. Implicit in that is the idea that we should then, okay, let's pander to you. Let's not hurt your feelings. Let's not say anything mean that might cause you to go. Let's not be like Charlie Kirk. But on the other side of that, when you see men abandoning the Democratic Party, should the Democrats start speaking to more masculine issues, right? Should we stop hurting men's feelings? So isn't it kind of just funny, like when you think about that dichotomy, like there's the implicit assumption in what you're saying is that you're supposed to be pandered to. You're supposed to be catered to. We're supposed to make your life easier, ladies. But should we be making men's lives easier? Should the Democrats be catering more to men? Should we be stopping hurting men's feelings? Or is the reality that nobody gets it?
Yes. No,
Oh, really?
like,
Okay.
right. Nobody cares.
Yeah,
No.
great. Yes. What are the Democrats going to do for us men? What do you think?
So that is a problem for them, right? They've gone so far to one side that they're losing the men, and there are very real reasons behind that. And the right's done the polar opposite. It's funny. I just saw a tweet this morning from Chernovich where he said that women do most of, and it's true, women do most of the political organizing, poll watching, calls to Congress, getting petitions signed, like you name it, and it is largely women doing it. So he said, if I had to choose, I would want women in my campaign more than men. And so, but then, he's saying, so these realities are here, but then you have all of the men saying, repeal the 19th. Like, what is that going to do exactly? So I think the question for us is, what is the right approach to this, to turn this around? And is the right approach to be, beating women over the head with it? Young women, by the way, young women who have been brought up in these, raised to be this way. And can we talk a little bit about the fathers who have been rearing them? Because, maybe men need to take some responsibility there. No generation, can be responsible for what the previous generation before them did. That's out of our control. But it is, I think we have to acknowledge the reality that, the fatherlessness, when we talk about these issues that women have, you're basically talking about daddy issues. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to throw that back on you and tell you that women control 100% of the reproductive process. Okay?
Sure.
Men control 0%. They contribute to the reproductive process, but ultimately the decision to have a child lies on the woman and the woman alone. So if a child is born and that child is a woman, and that child has daddy issues, or that child experiences fatherlessness, you can point fingers all day long at the horrible man that left or doesn't pay, or ended up with your daughter on OnlyFans or on the stripper pole because your dad was just not there, or daddy wasn't there, okay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem with that argument is that it still forgets that 100% of the reproductive process is controlled by one gender and one gender alone. Who chose that man? Who chose that man? And I'm telling you, Camelia, that women are not choosing good men. They're not choosing good men. They're choosing bad men. They're choosing bad boys who've got the dark triad that display traits of narcissism, they display dark traits, dangerous traits that are holdovers from our cavemen days, when you needed a man who was a little bit dangerous, or else you might die and he couldn't protect your children, right? So you need a man who's dangerous, mysterious, and sexy, but who isn't going to cause harm to you or your children, because there's an evolutionary psychology behind that. But now it's killing you. And now it's killing us all, Camelia. Now we're faced with a problem where women who control 100% of the reproductive process, and that wasn't always the case. It used to be that women did not necessarily decide if they wanted to get pregnant or not. That has changed with the birth of civilization. But as we see in nature, it's not women aren't the ones who necessarily choose all the time in nature. As a matter of fact, if you want to hear something weird and Google something later, Google why ducks have corkscrew penises. But I digress. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about here is that you're trying to push this back onto men's plates, right? You didn't finish your broccoli, okay? And I'm going to put the broccoli back on your plate, Camelia, and suggest that you take a big bite of broccoli. I hope you like it. And
I
here's
love
what
broccoli.
good. Eat your broccoli, Camellia. Women control 100% of the reproductive process. Therefore, they are responsible for the offspring that they bring into this world by the men they choose to mate with. Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, I would quibble with women controlling 100% of the reproductive process just because
Eat your broccoli, Camellia.
we are
You don't
partially
want to eat it.
responsible. But so that goes back to do women do what men want, or do men just do what women want? Because there are certain things that have to happen to get to to having that child. But I think this goes back to the responsibility is on both parties, right? So important for us, especially in today's day and age, with all of with our society's advancements and all of the issues that we face with that, and where we are in terms of the balance of the gender wars all the time. And let's not pretend that the gender differences and the gender wars is something new. It's not. That's as old as time. But I think that in our current society right now, in this context, it is perhaps gotten to a toxic level to where we have a choice to make. We can either choose to share responsibility in growing as individuals and having healthy relationships and bringing up healthy children, or we can continue to perpetuate the generational cycle of unhealthy relationships and this constant combativeness back and forth, which will always be there to a certain extent. But
Speaking of unhealthy relationships, Camellia, would you rather date a man and just date, who is a top-notch, wealthy, attractive, and a man of arts and letters, right? Knows his literature and can have these conversations with you and challenge you, but he's got a few girlfriends, right? Would you rather date that man, or would you rather date a simp? Would you rather date the beta male orbiter? Oh, Camellia, I love you. Can I kiss you, Camellia? Now, you are an anomaly, right? Your response to this might be different. But what we're seeing, and the interview that I did with Inez Stetman, a couple of months ago, she acknowledged this, is that women would rather share a high value man than be monogamous with a man of lower status than her. Where would you fall on that, Camellia? Simp, beta male orbiter, or high value, high status, cultured man of arts and letters, but he's got a few girlfriends?
Well, apparently I'm going to take the third option, which is cats.
and you know what? And many women do, Camellia. They choose that. That's where they go. They go the cat lady route, right? But women who don't want to go the cat lady route, which one do you think that they tend to prefer?
Well, I don't know. That's
you don't
really
know.
hard.
Don't you lie to me, Camellia.
Well, I'm
you
just
know
saying in my anecdotal experience,
Yes.
just with other women, most other women that I know are going to say that they're not going to share, so they're going to go with the other option. I don't, I think that's a real dilemma for women when you're faced, because it very much depends on your personality and just where you are in life. But I think, a lot of women don't want to be alone. So they
would rather share. They would rather share a high value man.
Well, or settle. Because if you're sharing a man, you're still alone. Let's be real.
Here's the thing. Most women, modern women, they're busy. They got jobs, right? They got, lives or careers. Some of them, they may be single moms, right? They may want to have they only have a couple of nights a week to go out. And that just happens to be the amount of time that the man has in between his other girlfriends. What Inez Stetman had argued is that we have moved into a sort of a polygamous, women prefer to be polygamous with a man who is high value than to be monogamous with a man who's lower value. And some women do settle, but when they settle with a man like that, they typically then divorce him later on, right? Use, abuse, and lose, right? Beta male orbiters really just get the leftovers of what a woman has, because she's never going to be as attracted to him as she would be to a man who is of high value, who has status, who has class, right? And are you completely throwing out this theory that I'm positing?
I think if you're talking about sharing a man, you're basically talking about women who are okay with just casual dating as a permanent lifestyle. That is different. If you are a woman who doesn't care about being married, who doesn't care about long-term relationships, married or not. If you don't care about a long-term relationship, then that's completely different. I do think that there are a lot more women who are okay with that now, which I think is unfortunate. I don't think that that's a healthy thing.
That's what I'm saying. Like
Right.
is that this is what women are preferring, and that it leads to these outcomes where we have children either out of wedlock, right, or a man has multiple women on the side if he's married, right, which has historically been the case for thousands of years, right? Polygamy was the norm. Monogamous relationships between two equals is a little bit more in recent history kind of a thing. We can debate that later, but the point is that these are based because of women's choices, right? So the children that we're getting, remember earlier when I was offering the broccoli, the choices about who to have a child with is 100% the woman's decision. You claim you don't want to eat that piece of broccoli.
Well, it takes two to tango, so I'm not going to say 100%.
We can't force you to have a child.
Well, that's true. That is true.
And if you want to end a child, in this country, if you want to not be a mother and you get pregnant, whose decision is that? Can I force you to have an abortion? I can't.
Right.
I can't force you to have a baby.
Nope. And I think that's atrocious.
100% of the decision to have a child is in one gender. Are you going to eat that broccoli or not, Camelia?
I'm not like you have to get there somehow. So I'm not going to 100% it. But yeah, I think that whenever, if you're talking about after that woman is pregnant, the decision whether or not to have that baby is 100% hers. Yes. I think that's terrible and it's unfortunate. But yes.
She's eating the broccoli, folks. She's eating the broccoli. She takes the broccoli. She ate the broccoli.
It's delicious.
It's delicious. So in that sense, then the logical outcome of that would mean that the children that we have, if those children happen to have daddy issues or father issues, I'm not saying that men can't be absolute pieces of crap, but I am saying you shouldn't mate with them. I am saying that perhaps your mate selection process is rooted in some dark age or medieval or Paleolithic evolutionary basis that really has no bearing today. That it's kind of like sugar. It used to be sugar was rare, and you sought out sugar. You were lucky to find it in the wild. Now sugar is killing us because we have it in abundance. Okay.
Right.
Now women are seeking out men with these dark triads, these dark personalities. They go out in the streets and they interview them. They're like, "Hey, what do you want? A drug dealer or a guy who's a good dude?" They want the drug dealers. They want the bad boys. And then because the decision to have a child is 100%, as we agree, yum yum yum, delicious broccoli, is what on the decision of the woman. Then the outcome for that child is therefore, I think, if not 100% on the woman, it's at least a majority on the woman who decided who she had a child with. At least the majority. I'll say that men play a role, but it's probably more like 25% because 100% of the birth decision is based on women. Am I being unreasonable?
No, that's not entirely unreasonable. And I would also say that this goes back to, when you talk about the influence of mothers in a child's life for both girls and boys, but especially I think for boys in their formative years, it is who spends the most time with children's typically. I mean, I'm not so sure that that's always true now, but yes, it's the mother. Like who are the boys crying out for when they're dying on the battlefields? It's their mother. Right. So like that mother's relationship with that son is cannot be underestimated. And in many ways, it's just the same if you on the flip side, a father's relationship with their daughter is so incredibly, incredibly important. I mean, it's important for fathers with their sons as well. You need that balance, but it's so important with daughters as well, which is why even though mothers spend so much time with the children and have such a humongous impact on them, it is, for women, they say the accepted wisdom is that you end up, marrying someone who's like your dad. Like that's not always true, but it is true. And if that's for women, if that's the girls, if that's the male role model in your life, Those are the things that you look at subconsciously when you're looking at men and assessing them. You're comparing them to what you have seen as that father figure and that role model growing up, in your own life. And for some women, if that was a very negative experience, like they're looking for, they can go one of two ways. They're either looking for the extreme opposite of that, or they end up trying so hard not to, find someone like that's who they end up with.
God, this was fun, Camelia. All of our segments this whole week have just been awesome and hilarious, and I think everybody enjoys it. Thank you for eating your broccoli today. We all appreciate that. Camelia, is there anything else on this topic, or perhaps maybe something you want to plug real quick before we let you go?
I don't have anything in mind. These are always fun, but and mostly probably because we need to argue a little bit about it. But I'm super curious to hear I'm looking forward to your interview with Hannah tomorrow, and I definitely would. I mean, for people, Hannah and I don't always agree on things, but I love her. I think she has a great point of view on lots of things, and we do agree on a lot of things, and she does see the nuance in these issues. And did she take great delight in her video that includes the critique of Pearl's interview with Ross Jeffries? Yes, and honestly, Pearl has it coming. But I would encourage people to watch that, because not just because it's Hannah kind of dragging Pearl through this, but it really is good just from listening to this man explain things in a very calm, fatherly way and tell Pearl
I will watch it tonight. I will watch it tonight and offer my analysis tomorrow.
No spoilers.
No spoilers tomorrow. Hannah Cox will be on the show. I'll ask her about it. We'll talk about these things. I'm sure it's going to be even spicier. You definitely don't want to miss tomorrow's episode. This whole week has just been stellar for content. Camelia, you've been a huge part of it. I think yours are always the best segments. So thank you, Camelia. We love you.
Well, I love you all too. So have a great day, everyone.
Bye, CJ. Appreciate that. Let's give us an applause for the lovely Camelia Peterson. Yes. All right. I know you guys unlocked the bonus content. I am going to play it before we leave. But before I do, real quick, just want to do a quick plug for apforlibertyshop.com. Our sponsor today, my lovely smoking hot redheaded libertarian traditional wifey, trad wife, Steffi P, made these beautiful glasses, historic spirits, stained glass collection, and now we've got shot glasses as well over at apforlibertyshop.com. Speaking of trad wife, check out her adventures in homemaking and hustling over at apforlibertyshop.com. You can watch her newest video of her brand new show, You're Wrong, Pregnant Mom, her first episode, and all the unsolicited advice that she's received since she got pregnant. Stephanie joins us tomorrow on the show. Her baby bump is getting huge. So make sure you come back tomorrow. So if you're watching the Wake Up America show on Rumble, 900 of you are, click the follow button on our channel so that you can find us again tomorrow morning. I'm AP for Liberty, but I don't expect you'll remember. So tomorrow when you're looking around for us and you want to hear the interview with Hannah and you want to see my wife Stephanie, who's with her giant baby bump, then come back tomorrow after you've hit the follow button. Don't leave until you hit that follow button on the channel right now so we can see you guys tomorrow, okay? Visit apforlibertyshop.com. Enjoy the bonus content that people like Levin214 and Urs Mommy unlocked while Camelia and I were having a little tussle. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the bonus content on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Wake Up America show's bonus content.